This is a cat car box. You see it opens like that on a pivot lid. It's got wheels, of course. It couldn't be a cat car box without wheels. It's got a tail, and I'm going to show you how to make it. Preparing the stock is an adult job that requires the use of the table saw. So I use 2x4 lumber and I resaw it into pieces as required, being very careful as I go and using a push stick to finish the cut. This is material that's sawn to the right dimensions for making a cat box. This piece is 5/8 of an inch thick and 1 inch wide, and this is to form the ends of the box. This wood is 1/4 inch thick and 1 5/8 inches wide, and this is to form the front and back of the box. This material is 5/8 of an inch thick and 1 5/8 inches across, and this is to form the bottom of the box. It has to be thick enough for the axles to go through. And this is the material for the pivot lid, and this material is 1/2 inch thick and it's 2 1/8 inches wide. You'll want to use a sled for cutting some of the smaller parts for the box. So the sled is a nice tool that carries the wood across the saw blade, pulls it back safely out of the way before you have to handle it. It also makes a very square cut. These are the parts of a cat box, and they are cut and ready for assembly. And so this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece are all cut to the same length. These two pieces here have to be very precise, and so these are pieces that I'll cut for the students. They can cut the rest of them themselves. It's best that they've practiced cutting square and straight in order to get all the pieces right. And this little piece here will become the nose of the cat, and it's also the pivot pin that allows the lid to open and close. And of course, you can design and shape your own ears, and they can be cut out on the scroll saw. This material here, this is common twine, and it's going to be useful for making whiskers and for a tail. As I prepare for assembly, I'll have a little bit of glue put on this little piece of materials that I can spread. I use a little glue paddle to spread the material along here. You'll notice that I have this piece in the vise, and that is going to hold it for me. And so with that glued, I can begin getting ready to nail. Now you'll notice that when you're nailing, you don't want to do 3 things at once, you want to do 2 things at once. So I hold the nail and the hammer, and I put it in position. This project, you want to make sure that your nails are properly spaced so you don't have to drill into them accidentally when you are drilling the axle holes. By getting those started, you see I'm ready, so now I can put my attention into making sure that I'm holding this in exactly the right place with all the edges lined up. I used my fingers to make sure that things are ready to assemble. And sometimes things split like that. And while I prefer that they not split, sometimes it happens. So So then I can flip it over like this. And I'm going to put more glue on here. And I'll get ready to put on the other side. I'll do exactly the same way. This time I'm going to change where I put the nail, put it just a little further in, and hope that it doesn't split. But by getting these nails started first, I'm not having to hold it in position as carefully. And now I'm going to do exactly what I did before. Hold everything in alignment. And sometimes nails bend a little bit. That's a disappointment. And sometimes they bend because there might be a knot underneath that I hadn't seen. So nails don't always bend because of something you've done, but I'm going to see if I can fix that. To fix it, I'm going to take these little pliers and I'm going to get a grip on it. And I'm going to try to pull it out carefully. And I made a little mark on there, which I'd prefer not to have done. But now I'm going to put a fresh nail in there. Let's see. Oh, that's better. Okay, now I'll be ready to add the ends in that box. So for adding the ends, I'm going to spread a little bit of glue there, there, and across there. And I'm going to slide it in place. And make sure that all my edges are lined up. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other end. And slide it in place. And then with my edges lined up, the glue is going to do a lot of the work of holding this together. So I'm not going to put a lot of nails in. I'm just going to put them where I think they'll be out of the way from the pivot hinge, the pivot pin, when it goes in. I'm going to try to put my nails in such a way that it looks like I space them out on purpose. So if one of the things that if someone looks at something and it was done the same here, as the same there, as the same there, as the same there, everything looks like it was done on purpose as a craft. As a old-time craftsman would do. You want to show people that you care about your work. Sometimes nails drop on the floor, and so I have to pick them up with a magnet. Okay, so that's the start of the box, and that will become the lid held in place with a pivot pin. So now I'm ready to install the pivot pin, and so I have a drill bit that's the same size as the shaft of the pin. And I use a slightly larger drill bit to allow the lid to, or maybe I'll do them both and see if it works. I'll mark very carefully where I think that nose should go. I don't want it to go. I want it to go directly into this block here. I don't want it too close to the edge where things are going to split. So maybe I'll move it over just a little bit that way. And that's where I'm going to drill my pivot hole, right there, carefully marked. To drill the hole for the pivot pin, I want to make sure that I have everything in position and the pivot lid lined up with the edges of the box. And I start the drill press. With the pivot pin in place, I've marked here where I want to drill for whiskers. I drill a hole about a 1/2 inch deep, maybe. And I want to use my sanding block to take those little fuzzy things off so I can get my whiskers in a little more easily. So with the scissors I can cut some whiskers. I can trim them afterwards to the length I want. I have to take these and kind of curl them up at the end with a little bit of glue on them. So I'm going to put a little glue in that hole like that. And then I'm going to take okay, I think that's going to stay in there. I'm going to take my nail again and I'm going to put some glue in that next hole. And twist this one up tightly. And see if I can get it to go in. Okay, that's 2 of them, and I'll do the same thing on the other side, and I'll try to get them to where they are uniform in appearance because we don't want our cat to be disheveled looking. So I'll twist this up and put it in. Okay. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. But first I'll try to mark so that I know exactly where to go with them. I'll put that in. Drill my holes. Now I'm going to try to be a little bit smarter about it, so I have to learn something all the time. So I'm going to put my glue in there first. I'll do each of them with glue. And cut my whiskers. And now my wildcat needs to have his whiskers trimmed. So now all he needs is ears and a tape. And some decoration that my students at school know how to do. To add wheels, I have to drill axle holes. With the wheels added, your cat car box is complete.